Go ahead.
Welcome to Theta Chi's Ritual Review of 2015. We're glad to be here thanks to the Greek Life Office and all the volunteers and guests who are here today that gave us an opportunity for us to talk about our ritual, how we interpret it, how we use it, and how it's a part of our daily lives. So to kick us off, we'll introduce ourselves. My name is Aditya Rangaswamy. I'm an accounting and computer science major. I love to play the violin. It's something I do. I do a lot of community service stuff too. It's a big part of my life, and I'm actually the current president.
Hi everyone, I'm Alec. I'm a first year undecided business student. Hopefully we'll get that figured out soon. I tutor with Church of the Covenant on Saturdays, and I love singing. We actually have a concert today for Case Concert Choir coming up. And I'm secretary of Theta Chi.
So let's get started. So the agenda of what we're going to talk about today can be defined in 3 distinct steps. One, we're going to be talking about the journey to brotherhood. We'll touch on things like recruitment, etc. The next step will be active brotherhood. So what do we do as we are brothers? And finally, the last step will be brotherhood for life, or alumnification, awards, etc. How do we look at how we are as brothers overall, rather than just specifics? And to kick things off, we're actually going to start reciting a bit of our creed. It's something that we hold dear, and we actually have it memorized. Every single one of our brothers is required to have their creed memorized. So let's kick it away with that. I believe in Theta Chi, its traditions and its ideals, born of sturdy manhood, nurtured by resolute men, ennobled by high and sacred purpose. It has taken its place among the educational institutions of America as a promoter of knowledge, an advancer of culture, and a builder of character. That's part 1. So let's kick us off with recruitment. Something that we've been really striving to do more and more over the last few years is values-based recruitment. And we had this wonderful workshop with a Delta Chi advisor last semester where he talked a lot about fired up methodologies. He talked a lot about how we use our values, how we do names lists. And really it comes down to recruiting more effectively and finding people who match who we are as people. Within our ritual, there's lots of references to an assisting hand and making sure we're there for one another. And that picture is actually from one of our events, Replay for Kids. They are a toy adapting company, you could call them. They're a nonprofit. And they make toys that are able to be used by various people with disabilities. So ultimately, those are the kind of events, sparsed with the fun stuff too, that should be in a recruitment to really reflect who we are as people. We're more than just people who hang out all day and have fun, right? And I think that is a key aspect of how we've morphed over time. Another aspect I'd like to mention is our assessment strategy. Something that's more new that we've started to do is assessing Rush a lot more critically and looking at the mannerisms and the nuances of how we've dealt with people, of things that we've messed up, things that we've done well. We'll actually sit and talk about that more comprehensively and cohesively. And I think that's key, because if you're not reflecting on how you've done things, you're not going to be able to get better. And ultimately, that assessment strategy has led us to tweak things, led us to reduce the amount of events we do in the week. We decided, you know what, this is too much stress on our brothers, and it didn't make sense to have an event practically every day. So we made it maybe a little bit of every other day, etc. So these are all things that come out of assessing what you do during a recruitment. And finally, to kick off recruitment, something that we do every single year, once a year, is the Resolute Man Scholarship. That scholarship is given to any non-affiliated male who has exemplified resolution within his own, mannerisms and who he is as a person. And I think the reason that scholarship is relevant to Ritual is we look for somebody who we think is going to make an impact on this campus, whether that's big or small. They've made an impact in high school and they're going to do it again. And encouraging those who have done that is important. And it's financial, of course. It's about $1,000 reward. So that's something that we feel is an important way we can give back to the students who are coming here. And ultimately, recruitment needs to be guided by these things.
So the next part of the journey to brotherhood is obviously the recruitment process, specifically the marshaling process, or when you become a candidate and a pledge to Theta Chi. And much like other Greek organizations on campus, we do the Big Brother program. And a huge part of that ritual aspect is making our candidates feel welcomed into our chapter. And we ask our candidates to choose a brother in the chapter that they most identify with and want to get to know more. And the job of this big brother is to really administer what the ritual means as a brother, and even as a candidate coming into brotherhood, to that person. Specifically our creed. As Swami mentioned earlier, we require that our brothers memorize the creed, and it's something that we believe reminds us of why we are an organization, and we're not just a bunch of guys that get together and deliver philanthropy and service together. So that is the first part that we ask our candidates to take process in. And then we also have chapter history sessions. You may recall that we were not actually always Theta Chi on this campus since we were here in the later 1800s. We had several other identities, and so we review these chapter history prospects as we go through the candidate process. And then that culminates into the plaque and service project. I was in the candidate class this last semester, and for example, our plaque was a 9-foot spear or so that had a sheath on it, so it was protected. But it really kind of serves as an identity of what this candidate class was like when we joined the chapter. There's other plaques in the house of little computer parts kind of assembled together, so maybe a lot of computer scientists in that pledge class. And it really sets an identity that we remember that we are all not we are alike in the sense that we are brothers, but we do have different personalities as we gather. And then finally, the purpose of the creed. And as I mentioned earlier, we go over the creed, we memorize it, we look at where it came from. It was actually written in 1915, and we review the how it was formed. So, continuing on.
It inspires true friendship, teaches truth, temperance, and tolerance, extols virtue, exacts harmony, and extends a helping hand to all who seek it.
So as we transition out of the candidate process, now we're into active brotherhood, the second part of this presentation, and that is specifically, what do we use ritual for during our chapter meetings? What do we use it as an active brotherhood? Well, the first thing that comes to mind, and something that you have in front of you now, is the ritual minute, where a brother comes up, reads from the ritual, and gives his interpretation of it. And really the purpose of this is not just a feel-good session, remind us of why, we're brothers because of what the ritual says, but how do we apply it? And we'll talk about some applications later on in the presentation. But like I was saying, the brother gives his interpretation, a takeaway. We don't actually record the ritual for obvious reasons, and that is something that the secretaries are now doing now. That's something that I wanted to do personally as a secretary, is record what brothers are saying about how we should be using our ritual today.
Another thing that we love to do is ritual reviews, and these tend to happen a little bit before initiation, and I'll touch on some improvements in the future of how we're going to revamp this and make it better. But currently, we have a variety of stories that I think a lot of different fraternities and sororities use adaptations of, but things like flag drop, and if you want more details, feel free to ask questions, or death of a fraternity. And these are stories that make you look at the idea of fraternal life as a whole and challenge the instances where we'll face adversity. And I think as we look at our ritual and how we face these challenges in these stories, we're able to get a more concrete picture and a more clearer picture of how our ritual can be applied. And ultimately, I think that's the purpose. You want to assess how much we understand the ritual. So by using stories, about using experiences that people have had and things that they've interacted with, ritual reviews really give us an opportunity to go more in depth than the ritual minute. The ritual minute, as it states, is usually 5 minutes. It's not a very long ordeal, but the ritual reviews tend to be a lot longer, and that gives us time to engage a little deeper than just the ritual minute.
A huge part of our ritual is actually scholarship, as many other fraternities and sororities may be on campus. And that's given by our motto, Alma Mater First, and Theta Chi for Alma Mater. And we really try to incorporate, that's one of the first things candidates learn when they come into the chapter, is that your grades are the most important thing. We want you to participate as brothers, but please, if you have great concerns, take care of those first. And a way we recognize that diligence, the workload that CASE gives you, is through the scholarship dinner. And that is a time, and we just had ours this last fall semester, where we recognize brothers that achieved the 4.0 or significant grade increase, or even other great achievements like significant projects from the last semester until now. We usually engage other organizations. The last Kappa Alpha Theta, we participated this last scholarship dinner, and we invite faculty as well. And it really is just a session where we just recognize those brothers. Oftentimes professors will come up and give commendations, words of improvement that we could work on, and it's a nice event.
So the next part is one of my more favorite parts. I love talking about this. Specifically, what we're going to be talking about now is how do we engage as Theta Chi outside of Case Western? We're in this bubble of Case Western Reserve. Sure, we'd go to a few conferences, and if you want details about that, ask me. And those conferences are interesting. But there are chapters that are so close to home. There's chapters in Akron, there's chapters in Toledo. How can we engage with them? And specifically, with the Akron chapter, we love to go to their initiation, and they'll come to our initiation, and it's fun, and they're visiting brothers, as we call it, and there's a lot of unique nuances to that and how we engage with them, and ultimately, we're able to expand our little circle, that's Case Western, and make it a bit bigger, Ohio. Maybe one day we'll make it national, but that's a dream, right? And you got to pursue those. That's definitely something we love. Specifically with the Toledo chapter, they've actually had a bit of a rough time lately. A lot of things have been happening within their chapter that's been a bit of a struggle. And we've done whatever we can to provide operational support. We have excellent transition documents. We send them right over. Now they've got transition documents for all of their officer positions, their non-officer positions. They need some advice and coaching for their various positions. I've done some of that coaching actually last semester, where I helped some of their officers with ideas, tips, tricks, for recruitment, for all these other things. And ultimately, that support network that we can create with these partnerships outside of just our university lets us expand our borders. And I think that's a wonderful way to really make our ritual and our meaning of who we are expand. And I think that's wonderful. That's a big part of who we are.
So, Mental Health Awareness Week. Earlier on in the semester, we put on a week where we devoted our time and efforts as a chapter just solely to the outside Case Western community in respect with mental health. And not only just mental illnesses that come to mind, but even the pressures of workloads and your studies that you can have here at Case Western. And how this incorporates into our ritual is, early on, if you remember in the Creed, we had kind of these buzzwords like sacred purpose and truth, temperance, and tolerance. And really, sacred purpose is really the one we want to hit on here, where it's our commitment to others. We are not just supposed to be focusing on ourselves as a chapter. Like Swami mentioned, we want to branch out with other chapters, but also to the community surrounding us. And specifically, we brought in some speakers from the National Association on Mental Illness. We donated fundraising money to them. We held open mic night in Leutner for those who wanted to share their experiences with mental health. Chalked the spitball, and on we gave out ribbons. So it really was a new event for us, kind of getting us out there as a chapter to actually participate and give to the community. And we really enjoyed the feedback that we got from it. People were surprised that a fraternity would actually, quite honestly, take something like this seriously, and it really was a nice touch back. Also, it goes back to our Vice President of Health and Safety. And this is a new position that Theta Chi recently made. And it really caused us, as a national chapter, to revise our ritual. This position is actually the third highest in the chapter. So it really, to make such a position that important, really kind of shifted Theta Chi towards more of a ritualistic, we need to take this very important. This needs to be an important aspect of our chapter. And so VPHS training is very important. There's conferences going on. There was the Drinians conference for the presidents, and then we have conferences coming up. In fact, this weekend where we'll be going to Kentucky, and we'll be learning about how we can, administer our duties as officers. So really the philanthropic support and how like the ritual changed with Mental Health Awareness Week is really important in the ritual aspect.
Our ritual shifted so much in such a good way to really highlight how we're there for each other through the creation of EPHS. Something new that we've actually started to do a lot more of is internal chapter assessment. And this is something I've been pushing. What I've noticed with it is we're able to, whether it's a survey or it's questions or roundtables or whatever it may be, we understand chapter needs and wants when it comes to all the pillars, not just ritual. And we understand our accomplishments and what are some points for improvement. Specifically points that I've already identified with our executive board and other officers when it comes to the ritual pillar, things like having ritual reviews more often than just before initiation. They're more heavy during initiation time period, but maybe before that. That's something that I've heard a few times as a possibility. So things like this that are nuanced but can help us engage with our ritual more are aspects that are concrete goals that can come out of assessment, and I think that's important. So we'll continue to do that and continue to find ways to tweak and improve how we are as a chapter. I believe in the primacy of alma mater, in the usefulness of my fraternity, in its influence and its accomplishments, and I shall do all in my power to perpetuate its ideals, thereby serving my God, my country, and my fellow man. Steven Spielberg is actually a brother of Theta Chi. Fun fact.
So moving past active brotherhood and into alumnification of our brothers, the first thing that comes to mind when we try to keep in contact with them is the alumni newsletter. And many chapters do this on campus, and it's something that we really enjoy doing as well. Where at the end of the semester we'll update alumni with the highlights of that semester. We'll send pictures. Specifically for this last alumni newsletter, it was Mental Health Awareness Week. We invited brothers, a few brothers we saw come back as alumni. And it's just an update, really. It's quite self-explanatory. We also want to provide opportunities for engagement. So actually, many of our chapter advisors are alumni of Theta Chi. Matthew Richter and Dan Newman come to mind first. And actually, Dr. Richard Druschel, he's the chapter advisor, and he's an alumni and a professor here as well. So we really want alumni to come back and give us advice and opportunities for improvement. They come to our chapter meetings and give us points of information for when we're not running very efficiently or when we, kind of become dilatory with our discussions, which can happen sometimes. So the newsletter really is important in keeping with that contact. And something that we're going to be doing more recently is we're going to compile recent alumni achievements. So after you graduate, we really want to see what kind of a job you're at, because that is the goal after you go to college. Are you married? Where are you living? And what are you doing? And that's really something important that we really want to remind not only our current brothers that there is life outside of college, but that it really is important to keep in contact with them.